All right, what is up, everybody? Glad to be back with you on this fabulous Friday. If any of you have been following my chats that I've been doing with Rob over on his channel, I mentioned that my channel is going to come back from the dead, kind of like Dracula at some point, right? So I figured today was a pretty good day to do that. There's been a lot that's been going on since my last video where I covered Saudi Aramco and some of those possibilities with Jasmine and Saudi Aramco. Today's video, though, on the other hand, this is really going to be about the Bitcoin ETFs. The reason why is I really wanted to highlight what a big deal this is. And I'm not sure if anybody is truly grasping how big of a deal this is, right? So to kick this off, the Bitcoin ETFs, they have been trying to get these things approved for years, decade, however long it has been a long time, right? And Gary Gensler over at the SEC had been dragging his feet, and wouldn't approve them, right? And I kind of equate this to almost like the avalanche coming down the hill. That eventually the avalanche just got so big that he couldn't hold it back any longer, right? So they finally approved the Bitcoin ETFs, and this was roughly, I think when I looked it up, it was about January 12th or so of this year, 2024. So as of today, February 16th, these Bitcoin ETFs have been live for just a little over a month. Okay. And I want to highlight just how much money has already started showing up here, right? So this site right here is blockworks.co. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. A great place to check out the Bitcoin ETF tracker. So looking at some of these, obviously Grayscale was kind of at the top here, but BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK Investments, right? That's Kathy Wood, Bitwise, right? Look at these. They're all in the, quote, billionaire club, okay? And AUM stands for assets under management. So if you're looking at how much Bitcoin is under management, that's what we're looking at here, right? So just a colossal amount of money within 1 month, right? So when you're looking at this, I mean, you got 5.5 billion, 4 billion, where we at 9.5. You had another one on there. We're probably near 11, 12. Add these up, that's probably 13. Let's say we're somewhere around the ballpark of $14 billion that has come into Bitcoin in 1 month and taken those Bitcoin off the shelf. And what's interesting too, what I kind of like about how Blockworks is tracking this, is you can see who the custodian is, right? So whether it's Coinbase, self custody, Gemini, look at all the influence here from Coinbase. Like, whoa, that this is one of those things where Coinbase as a stock, is kind of maybe a bit of a mixed bag up until now, right? Some days it's been up, some days it's tanked, right? There's always seems to be a headline around somebody like Kathy Wood. Kathy Wood sells her Coinbase stock. Whoop-de-doo, right? What's interesting to me is when you look at Coinbase being the custodian for these massive companies. Again, BlackRock, right? Ironically enough, ARK, Kathy Wood's company. Bitwise, right? Invesco, Valkyrie Bitcoin Fund, right? Franklin Bitcoin, okay, great. Wisdom Tree Bitcoin. I mean, look at all this stuff that's in here. It's absolutely insane. So let's say $14 billion in 1 month. Now, from that, I got a couple really interesting articles here. So the first one here, so BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF holdings near 110,000 Bitcoin already. Okay, so again, this is just over 1 month later. BlackRock already has 110,000 Bitcoins. Now, I went ahead and I looked it up, how many Bitcoins MicroStrategy has. And Google's telling me that as of late last year, they had 190,000. So BlackRock is only 80,000 Bitcoin away from passing MicroStrategy, and that's 1 month. Absolutely insane. I mean, it's just crazy, right? The amount of growth here. And what's interesting is this statement right here. So BlackRock CEO Larry Fink recently said that he is now, quote, a big believer in Bitcoin, emphasizing that it's bigger than any government. So this is one of the largest investment funds in the world, and their CEO is fully on board here, which is, if you look up his track record with Bitcoin, he wasn't always like that, right? So crazy. Now, going back to Michael Saylor had even posted earlier today a Wall Street Journal article that basically said, his gamble on Bitcoin was a big failure and he's going to lose all this money. And he is going to be like the next Jeff Bezos, let's say, at some point in time, with the amount of money that he's got into Bitcoin. It's just insane. He is going to win. And you knew he was going to win. And, in terms of like the smartest guys in the room, that's one of the guys. So if he's going all in on this, it really does make you think, I should be going all in on that, right? He even said that, going back to Michael Saylor, he even said that back when he was buying, Apple stock, and I think he was investing, I think it was GAFA in the past, and he said, anybody could have done it. Just invested in the best companies. He's like, that's what I do. I put everything into the best companies. So Bitcoin, obviously not a company, but you could argue it is the best opportunity, right? Moving on. So this post right here from Cointelegraph. So Bitcoin ETFs inflows snowball. Last 4 days bigger than the first 4 weeks. What? I mean, what? Like, come on, really? And, where I think this is going, and I've said it on my chats with Rob, is I think that if retirement accounts can start loading up with Bitcoin, right, through these ETFs, you are going to see a ton of money go into these. Because again, now you could keep your money in just the straight up stock market, and then the S&P 500, Nvidia, there's a few of them out there. They're just absolutely crushing it. Semiconductors, right? But the Bitcoin opportunity is absolutely huge. And I think there's a ton of desire from people who have retirement accounts, 401ks, you name it, to have the option to be buying Bitcoin through an ETF. So this is just the beginning here. And I talked about this also in my chats with Rob, the idea of TVL. Okay, so this is total value locked. How much total value is getting, in a sense, kind of locked into Bitcoin, right? And right now we've got over $14 billion in just over a month. And then in the last 4 days was bigger than the first 4 weeks. So here's a post right here from Thomas, right? So we're witnessing total acceleration of Bitcoin ETF inflows. First 20 days of trading, 42,000 Bitcoin inflows. Last 4 days, 43,000. Absolutely insane. And they also mention here, as I said earlier, it comes as 4 spot Bitcoin ETFs, excluding Grayscale, have now taken their place in the billionaire club. So today, Bitwise crossed 1 billion in assets under management. Absolutely awesome, right? Awesome. So looking at the Bitcoin chart, I kind of wanted to go over here to TradingView. So here's the really far zoomed out chart on Bitcoin, right? So we got all the years here. You can basically see, before my head here, we got 2017 all the way through now 2024. Right now we're at right about 51.8. Previous all-time high was right about 69,000. Okay. I see this Bitcoin, and I read a post earlier today that kind of predicted it going somewhere near 200,000. I think that is easily within the realm of possibility here, possibly at 200,000. I've said all along with this past cycle that I don't know if it was kind of like artificially suppressed because of black swan events around the world. Could that happen in the next cycle? Yeah, sure it could. But if not, it's possible that this cycle could be making up ground from last cycle. Okay. So I honestly see this thing. I think it could easily be somewhere around that $200,000 mark by the halving for sure. It typically in this thing here, it tends to almost like triple the previous all-time high. And you got to look at the overall market here, and is there really anything that would prevent that at the moment? At the moment, no. I mean, now could something come up? Sure, yeah, something could always come up, something crazy. You never know. But this is where the long-term trend appears to be heading, right? Now, the other thing that I've been thinking about with all of this is that I know the effect that BlackRock and all these large investment funds have had on the real estate market. So in real estate, they have been gobbling up personal residential homes over the last couple of years. And the real estate market arguably is kind of like set a new baseline that is far higher than it ever was in the past. Okay. To give you an example, so in just the couple of houses that I own, my house that I'm in right now, right, I paid a little, somewhere around about $316 for it, let's say. Right now, this house is worth about $550, right? Just crazy, the amount of appreciation. One of my rental properties, I paid around $203. It's worth $350. Okay, significant appreciation. Another rental house, I paid around $213. It's worth about $460,000. All right. So how do they appreciate that much that quick? Well, it's the influence of these large investment funds. And when all this money comes dumping in at once, it sets a new baseline. And so I think what I'm getting at here, maybe my idea that I'm kind of on, is I feel like all of this inflow from these investment funds in the form of ETFs and in the form of retirement accounts may end up setting a new baseline. And I think that you're still going to have those people that that try to dump Bitcoin, right? I mean, Bitcoin, for the most part, has always been cyclical. Now, it's up for debate whether those cycles continue for how long into the future. At some point, do they just sort of stop? Or do they simply continue because of the halving creates scarcity, and then the cycle goes on, right? But I really wonder, is the baseline going to be significantly higher now? And again, if you're looking at this over just 1 month, $14 billion, and that rate arguably has been accelerating as of late. Now, what it means to the entire crypto market, I like to think of Bitcoin like the moon influencing the tides. So, the closer the moon is to planet Earth, the more it influences the tides, right? The bigger it is. So with Bitcoin, why it influences everything else is because of Bitcoin pairs. So you have all these coins, various altcoins that are paired up with Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin goes up, they all go up. When Bitcoin goes down, they all go down. Now, theoretically, in a super cycle where you'd have, your crazy altcoin season, right? Bitcoin is going to build everything up with it. And eventually the money will start flowing out of Bitcoin towards the alts. The alts should be able to go on a significant run, and then everything kind of resets after that. So I think as of right now, I saw the other day the inflation numbers came back just barely like a hair higher than what they wanted. But some of that is due to things, like your costs at restaurants, your wages have gone up, so now your prices are higher. There's certain parts of inflation that haven't gone back down, right? I saw a post, I think it's Charlie Bolello. He's a great account to follow on Twitter. He posted the inflation was something like 10% above the trend line of where it had been, right? So it still hasn't gone back down to the actual trend line. It's almost like it's at a new trend line. So that's still a little bit problematic in terms of rates, right? Rate reductions. They had been talking about dropping rates in March. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But I think they are looking at dropping rates potentially through the second quarter. So April, May, June. And any kind of rate reduction is super bullish for Wall Street. It's super bullish for crypto. And it really just kind of seems like all this stuff is kind of pulling into one right now. And we're gearing up for something really large. So I think where I ultimately stand on this is I feel very fortunate to have found this space and got into it and not been scammed out of everything that I have just yet. Right? So I've still got that money. I've still got my various holdings kind of all over the place. And I still believe in the long term growth of this space. Now, sometimes I do kind of question how much value really is in an altcoin, really is in that project, of how good a project is, right? And I don't even know if that truly matters, like an idea, patents. Somehow you got to marry that to the coin. It all comes back to the coin. And it seems, at least for now, that TVL, total value locked, in a coin is what moves it up, right? I mean, that kind of seems like the thing that does it. Now, granted, there's people out there like Vitalik that, I saw a really funny post earlier today where there was some girl asking him like what his favorite pickup line was. And he kind of looked at her like a space alien and said, "What?" And somebody said, this is why ETH is going to go straight to the moon. I kind of agree with that, right? I mean, that's like that little pop culture thing that like people find and they go, "That's hilarious. Ha ha ha. Let me get some ETH," right? And we don't even have the the Ethereum ETFs yet. That would be the next thing. Is Ethereum a commodity that we can put in an ETF? That's the big difference here, right? There's a bunch of different ones that I think it was Grayscale had put in for ETFs, like Solana, Ethereum, Cardano, yada yada. But I don't. Nothing else has been approved outside of Bitcoin as of yet, because Bitcoin is viewed more as a commodity because Satoshi put it out there. There's not really like, a company with a CEO and, all these executives that are in charge of Bitcoin. It's not like that. But with altcoins, it's a little bit different, right? So I know there's that lawsuit in New York that's challenging whether ETH is a security, yes or no. So to be determined what happens there, more going on. But outside of all that kind of noise of Ethereum and whatever may be happening with the altcoins, the biggest thing that you guys see here is that this, again, going back to the moon and the tides, this is the moon, Bitcoin, projecting to get very large and very close to the planet. And when it does that, it's going to influence everything significantly. I see this thing continuing to grow. I really don't know if you can. I don't think, barring getting scammed or some sort of weird hack, or you click a link for an airdrop or something like that. I don't think you can lose, at least currently, with Bitcoin. It's the first scarce digital asset. It's the granddaddy. It's available everywhere. You now have massive investment funds taking it off the shelf. Theoretically, the more that's taken off the shelf, the higher the price goes, because we're driving up scarcity, right? The scarcer something gets, the more it's worth. My own personal opinion, not investment advice, I think you would be crazy not at least looking into Bitcoin. So put it like that. Me personally, I like to invest right about $25 a day. I stick in Bitcoin. If it goes up, great. If it goes down, great. Don't really care. I don't care. So my goal here with this Bitcoin thing is to build up this is like a legacy fund, right? I mean, I've got retirement accounts with a hell of a lot more money than I have in Bitcoin, right? But I think this has the potential to be one of the most valuable things you can possibly hold. And all of the signs are there. The market's there. The way things are trending is there. It's looking to be a bullish year. In the cycle of years, typically this year would be I think it's this year and the next 2 years are positive years, right? And then I think maybe it's this year and the following year positive years. Anyway, something like that. It's either 2 or 3 years of positive, and then we have a negative year. That's how the cycle has gone. And will the cycle continue? Probably. I think it probably will, based on the halving. And I also saw recently a company that had invested over $300 million building the largest Bitcoin mining facility in Texas, here in the United States. So if they're investing that much money right now, then that tells me then they think they can continue to make massive returns. You also have to consider the idea of a Bitcoin standard, which is an idea that's been floated by Michael Saylor a lot in his conversations with large companies. Essentially, that do you really want to hold your reserves in cash, USD, that is going down in value? The buying power of that USD is going down over time. Or do you want to hold your reserves in something like a Bitcoin? And he's not wrong, right? So I'll leave it at that. I think we're going to have a really good year this year. I think we're going to have a really good year next year. I see this growth pattern continuing. You can't deny that $14 billion hasn't rolled in through just over 1 month. Where we go from here, I think it continues to grow. I do think at some point Bitcoin will probably pass gold. It makes too much sense not to. All right. The genie's out of the bottle. And it's really, truly a amazing time to be alive and quite the opportunity. So anyway, that's it for today's video. Figured I'd do a new one here for you. I know it's been a little while, but wanted to crank this one out. Stay tuned. I'll probably be doing some more videos with my compadre, Rob. We have pretty good time. I've been in the process of, ironically, I have the fastest internet you can get, but I've noticed some of those videos skip a little bit. And I think it's because I've been hooked up wirelessly. So I'm gonna just go for it. I'm gonna tear up the house. I'm gonna hardwire it, and I'm gonna have very, very fast internet, which I actually have right now because I went ahead and ran a wire. So anyhow, that's it for today's video. This is Jesse with Keeping It Real Finance, channel that always says you're back, tells it like it is, and is back from the dead like Dracula. I'll catch you on the next one. Later.